one person kind of dominating, but both people offering suggestions and working together, making sure that all the team members have a voice and discussing the students in a way that's respectful. So I just wanted to point that out. And this is also just a really good resource. So what we're going to be talking about today, kind of our objectives, we're going to review the proficiency scales and the benefits of using those scales. We're going to hopefully give you an understanding of the benefit of ongoing collaboration utilizing the proficiency scales. We're going to learn about shared problem solving and problem solving protocols. And before we really dive in, we want to ask you all, why do you think collaboration between general education and special education teachers and professionals, why do you think that's important? And feel free to type that in the chat or unmute and give us your thoughts. I've seen in the chat, one person says 2 heads are better than 1. Teamwork makes the dream work. Love it. Love it. Anybody else? Gives everyone a chance to learn. Sorry, somebody was going to say something.
For me, coming from a special education background, what I found is with the students being in inclusion now, some of the general educational teachers have never had to deal with this sector before. They know what they normally teach, but they don't quite understand how to take what's on their IEP and utilize that in their classroom. Because if a child is on the 1st grade level and she's teaching on the 11th grade level, that's going to be difficult to match, and therefore it causes a lot of frustrations for the general educational teacher, where with the teacher who specializes in that particular sector would be able to kind of help her along the way.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas, for sharing that. And on the flip side, Dana Hawkins in the chat put it, general ed teachers also see things in the general ed setting that a special ed teacher might not see in the resource room. But again, putting that,
Something's going on with the sound.
can we all ensure we're muted?
Okay, I think that's better. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Sorry, I couldn't hear you well because there was some background noise.
So I was just going to say, just as, you know, the general ed teacher sometimes doesn't know how to incorporate that IEP, just reiterating what Ms. Davis was saying, I was going to go on the flip side. Dana Hawkins in the chat said, but the special ed teacher doesn't always see what happens in the general ed classroom. And so, and then I think Ms. Smith put, you know, we're educating the whole child, all of the child. And so we're all have a vested interest in that child. So we have to work together.
I noticed what Nicholas Fink put in that says if we all pull in the same direction, we can accomplish more and faster. And I think that's really what we're going to hit on today is everybody going in the same direction and being on the same page. Working for best interest of the child. Yeah, so lots of great ideas. One thing I wanted to point out too is that many provisions in IDEA can really only occur through collaboration. When you talk about assessment and decision making, providing services, transition, support of outside agencies, you really can't do a lot of those things without that collaboration piece.
Absolutely, 100% agree. Y'all knocked it out of the park in the chat. And thank you, Ms. Davis, for being brave and unmuting yourself and sharing for everybody. So real quick, we're just going to recap in case you weren't with us on the first round of this kind of trajectory PD about using proficiency cells to collaborate between general ed and special ed teacher. I just want to make sure we all have an understanding of what proficiency skills are so that we'll understand what we're talking about. But pretty much proficiency skills takes the ambiguity out of a standard. Those standards are very, very, very wordy, lengthy, meaty standards. And so the proficiency scales takes all the guessing out of it. It tells you exactly what it means to master that skill, concept, or standard. And so it breaks it down into levelized learning goals. And so it clearly indicates a progression of skills and understanding at each level. And so speaking of levels, level 3 is your grade level content. This is where we need all kids to be before they leave you in the classroom to go on to the next grade level. So this is our grade level content. But above that, level 4, that's just extra. That's benefit. That doesn't mean that goes beyond the standard. It goes deeper, dives deeper into the standard. Doesn't mean I go to the next grade level. It just means I give them more opportunities to dive deeper, maybe make some connections among other concepts, but not to go to the next grade level. That is I feel like a misconception out there. So level 4 is not next grade level. That is going deeper to the standard. Level 3 is where we want all kids to be. That's where we should be shooting for. But we have levels 2s and level 1, and those are all those prerequisite skills. And so that's the necessary knowledge or foundation that kids need in order to attain the grade level or level 3 skills. So as a teacher, I need to make sure and provide opportunities to formatively assess my students to see, do they have these skills? Because if they don't, they directly impact the ability for them to achieve mastery at the grade level skills. And I do want to reiterate, keep in mind that the proficiency scales that were released by the State Department are aligned to the 2016 standards, not the 2019 standards. But the 2019 proficiency scales will be coming out in the near future to help with the new 2019 standards. And currently the proficiency scales are only written for the critical standards, but when 2019 and we have the full implementation, there will be proficiency scales for all of the standards. So just know that that is coming your way. But we do read the scales from bottom up because level 1 is the most basic foundation, and then I build on that in level 2, and I use level 1 and level 2 to achieve my level 3 grade level content, and anything above level 3 is just going deeper into the standard. And a lot of times, most of the proficiency scales will have activities for each of the levels. So again, it takes some of that ambiguity. What tasks do I need to do with my kids in order to achieve this level of understanding? It's all right here for you. So again, we've tried to streamline the process so you shouldn't have to go to thousands of different places to understand, 1, what the standard means, and 2, are providing resources for it outside of your traditional textbook.
And now that we have kind of reviewed that proficiency scale, I will recap with you about our student that we talked about. So in our first session, we had a sample student that we named Candace that we were planning for and using this proficiency scale with. So what do we know about Candace so far? What we learned the last time about Candace, she is a 6th grade student who struggles with basic math facts. Her lowest grade is in mathematics, where she often avoids work. She's very social, and she's more vocal in her history class and in some other classes. She speaks up more there, but not in math. We've learned that she tends to be impulsive with her answers, not really taking the time to work through. And we also learned that she works well if she's given step-by-step guides. So that's just a little brief summary about what we learned about Candace. And then we talked about, based on that, what kind of supports we wanted to put in place for her. We talked about letting her use a calculator as a tool, and then we were going to devote time in the resource room for her to learn how to use that tool. We discussed how you really just can't take for granted that students know how to use the tools that you give them. So we wanted her to have time to learn that. We talked about using graphic organizers with her. We also talked about giving her multiple opportunities for reasoning and for making sense of things that she's doing, giving her problems that are grounded in context, And then also we talked about strategic partnering. So letting her work with someone else, kind of hoping to build up those social emotional skills since she was kind of quieter, not as social in the math classroom. So that's kind of where we started with her, and where we are today. This would be like after some time has passed. We've put these supports in place, and now the general education teacher and the special education teacher are going to come back together and talk about how things are going and where is she now.
So as Kim just alluded to, it's been a couple weeks, and so let's check in on Candace and see if those modification and accommodations are helping her. And we're going to kind of give you a glimpse into kind of how a discussion can go using the proficiency scale to guide that conversation about Candace and her progress in those accommodations and modifications. So remember, I told you proficiency scales we read from bottom up because it builds the level of complexity. So as we can see in level 1, the most foundational, you can see, I'm not surprised, she has got her vocabulary. So given multiple opportunities to use it in context, we can see that, not surprising, she definitely has that vocabulary down. But you can see at level 1, Candace still struggles relating a table to an equation. She can connect the graph to the equation though. So that's something, you know, maybe we want to work with a little more with Candace, and she still struggles with that, and that's a level 1 skill. So she really needs multiple opportunities to discuss these potential patterns. I noticed that in a group, she is very, very, very verbal and wants to find the patterns, but sometimes that impulsivity hinders her really thinking about the patterns and stopping and slowing down to think and then to make those generalizations. So we're still having kind of a problem with that impulsivity that I think directly limits her ability to make that generalization, to connect the pattern in the table to the equation. So, but then level 2, she's still got that vocabulary, and we still are struggling connecting the table to the equation. So if it shows up in level 1 as a deficit skill, it's definitely going to show up in level 2, and it should show up in your level 3 because of the nature of mathematics and the building. So not surprisingly, we still have that struggle with the level 2 with connecting the table and the equation. And we can see again that that shows up in her level 3. And so, you know, we've really got the understanding of dependent and independent variables here. So she has that vocabulary, she has what changes, what depends on what, but we really still have a struggle making the equation. And that's not a normal, that's not uncommon for just Candace, that's uncommon for a lot of our students as well. So with we made those modifications, Kim, to her social emotional, and really tried to strategically pair her and provide her multiple opportunities to share out on the board to try to build that confidence up. And I have noticed her really blossoming in this unit, so that strategic partnering is going very well. However, Kim, Candace has developed an aversion to wanting to work independently. She only wants to work with a partner now. And so we need to make some more modifications to kind of limit that. She's got to be able to work on her own, but I am very happy she's blossoming in the social aspect in the math classroom. So this unit's definitely helped her to blossom with that strategic partnering. So
definitely.
That's kind of how you would use the proficiency scale. As a general ed teacher, I would be tracking and providing that information continuously back to the resource, special ed teacher, whoever you have to help you. And that can help provide some more accommodations and targeted support for that individual. So again, the proficiency scale takes the ambiguity. It tells you exactly what Candace or any student needs to know to meet that mastery. And so it clearly, you just check it off, you clearly see what's still missing and we need to work on for any individual, but in this case, Candace.
And one thing I'll just chime in real quick that we kind of touched on this the last time we talked about it, but it really streamlines your process in special ed with progress monitoring on goals when you can use a scale like this, and you have the same version that the gen ed teacher has. You're marking off what the student can do, and the decisions we're going to get into next about shared problem solving, but the decisions that you're making for the child about accommodations, about what they need to work on and what they're working on in the resource room, all of those have foundation. There's something there that you can show why you're making those decisions. So I think it's great, and you could obviously do this like on the computer, but we did it as I think we would have as teachers. And for me, I would have had the printout in front of that unit on each kid's notebook or binder or whatever, and I would have been marking it as I saw that they could do it, and writing on it just like we did. So that's why we wanted to show you that type of example, just because we felt that was very practical.
Yeah, it, like I said, takes the ambiguity out. You're having to do it anyway because we're making accommodations and having to show how we're supporting all of these different students. And this just does it all for you. So one-stop process, and you know, as teachers, time is crucial and no one has time to do extra things. So we kind of gave you a recap of where Candace is now. And so we've got to go forward. We have that social emotional, so she doesn't want to work alone anymore. And we have that content issue. She's got to be able to create an equation from a table. So we have two avenues that we want to work with. And so we're going to show you, and we'll share this afterwards. You'll get access to this protocol. We're going to share with you a shared problem solving protocol that came out of this book by Friend and Bursuck on including students with special needs. If you're a general ed teacher, this is a practical guide for classroom teachers. I love this book. My book is the older version. So you probably could find this cheaper somewhere, but on the right-hand side, that's kind of the newer look of it. But they're pretty much the exact same. So great book for general ed teachers who are struggling or, as Ms. Davis alluded to earlier, doesn't know how to do or use that IEP throughout the classroom, in the general ed classroom. So let's talk about shared problem solving for a second. Shared problem solving is the basis for the collaborative activities school professionals undertake on behalf of students with special needs. That's exactly what we're doing. That's what we're asked to do to meet the needs of our students. And so shared problem solving has some steps. Don't be overwhelmed by the steps. I'm going to show you some examples and see, so you can see how easy it can be. But we got to identify the problem. I just identified two for you for Candace, a social emotional one and a content related one. Then we've got to propose some solutions, evaluate those ideas, plan specifics, implement the solution, and then last but not least, always come back and reevaluate. Are we working towards our goals? Did we get the outcome we want? So let's see what it looks like in person. Like this would be a typical thing. We've got Candace, and this is about her social emotional. So we've got to identify the problem and propose solutions. So Kim, how can we help Candace work independently on assigned classroom tasks? That's the problem. And then Kim and I brainstorm some ideas quickly through email, maybe. Doesn't even have to necessarily be face-to-face in this particular aspect. And so we came up, you can see all the ideas that we possibly came up with. Does anybody want to give a go of why we might have scratched out stay in from PE or elective? You can put it in the chat or unmute yourself. Why might we have scratched out stay in from PE or elective?
A lot of kids.
Because you cannot take the child's PE from them. They have to have a time to exert that energy, and PE is great for them to exert that energy, because if you do not, they're going to tap your classroom.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Anybody want to add on to what Ms. Bradley said?
That's a great time to practice that social interaction because you're with peers.
Thank you, Dana. Yes, so we know she's social. She's a social butterfly. Why would we remove that from her? That one of her main avenues of being able to get out that energy. Yes, I agree with y'all. That could potentially be a problem in the classroom and possibly get more disruptive behavior from that. So yeah, we want to give her outlets, and no offense, I love mathematics. If you take away a middle schooler's PE or a fun elective, they're not going to like mathematics so much. And that's not my goal. I want her to like mathematics. So then we've got to evaluate them. So Kim and I sat down and we said, all right, our goal based on our problem statement is she needs to work alone independently for at least 5 minutes. That's part of our goal. And then it really needs to be a low time commitment for teachers. No one has time for something else, and it can't disrupt the normal teacher's classroom routine. No one has time for that either. But we also, because this is her social emotional, we're still trying to build that efficacy. We still want her to believe in herself that she can do the mathematics and persevere in trying it. And so we've got to evaluate it. We got the ideas, we got to evaluate it based on the criteria. So I'm going to give you an example. So taped instructions. Based on criteria 1, yes, if I give Candace a videotape, she might be able to work for 5 minutes. I believe that. So that would be a high yes possibility, going to do that. But then if I look at criteria 2, if I'm having to take those instructions, that's disrupting my time. That's a high time commitment for me. So that's rated low for me because I don't have the time to create this extra video. Now, if I want to go out and find a video, that is different, and I would rank it differently. And then does it disrupt the classroom routine? I don't know. Maybe some students would say, why does she get that video and I don't? So I put that kind of in the middle. Not quite sure how that would work out yet. And then criteria 4, because it would allow herself to work 5 minutes alone, I do think that would build her efficacy. And then you would sum up all the scores. And so for taped instruction, that would rank a total of 8 points. You would keep doing that progress throughout all of your ideas. And you can see that once we've totaled up the points, we evaluated the ideas. And again, this can be done virtually, face-to-face. It can be done, any form or fashion. Doesn't have to be done traditional ways in light of COVID. So you can see that after we ranked this for her social and emotional, we decided that we either now need to allow Candace to choose her assignment, because maybe if she chooses the assignment, she'll be more willing to work alone on it and persevere, or some sort of interactive lesson. And so she could do some sort of Desmo lesson or something with manipulatives or something that I've given her that's more interactive to help her want to work alone. So it's engaging that encourages her to work alone with her and either the tools on her table instead of a peer. That's just social emotional. We still have to work on the content as well.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we help Candace create equations from a pattern represented in a table? Again, we came up with lots of ideas. We scratched out several. And some of the ones we scratched out, like Study Buddy, we scratched out because it didn't fit the social emotional. If we give her a study buddy, she's not going to be working alone for 5 minutes. So they go tandem, hand in hand, together, working side by side. And so all these resources, guess where I pulled them? I didn't spend my time going out and looking for them. Guess where I pulled them? The proficiency skills. So I looked at what different levels had she already mastered, what had we already done? And then from the proficiency scale, I grabbed extra resources that I could use to help Candace or any other student in my classroom achieve that same level of understanding. So we've got our ideas, we've got our problem statement, but we've got to evaluate them. So we went through the same thing. We evaluated the ones we thought would achieve social, emotional, and the content according to our goals. And what do we notice? So when we add up all the scores, after we do it, we rank it, we see that a graphing calculator might help her, as well as an interactive lesson.
So in looking at all of these ideas, what do you think should be done next? What do you think you might have chosen for this child? Anyone? Well, one thing just to kind of, I know the shared problem solving is fairly new to me too, but I really enjoyed it. And one of the things that Elizabeth actually pointed out to me was, let's look at both of these areas at what was, what ranked highest for both the social, emotional, and content. And when we did that, we could kind of see that interactive lesson would probably help her, but she also has to learn how to use a tool. So that's kind of how we got to where we are, just to tell you. And there's not really a wrong answer because every individual child's going to be different.
Absolutely. But the great thing about this is my documentation. As a teacher, this is my documentation for how did I decide what I needed to do for this particular student based on the IEP with their accommodations in collaboration with the special ed or resource teacher. And so again, this goes in my evidence box. I'm not doing this just to do this. I'm doing this to help her. I'm doing this because it is a part of our job to help all children grow and learn and do. And this protocol, the shared problem solving method with the proficiency scales, provides you a nice kit and caboodle to do it all together, all at once. But we've got to think about the whole child. So as I'm thinking about the content, I have to think about that social emotional or behavior or any other aspect that's happening with that child. Can't just look solely on content if you're a general ed teacher. And I know that we fall into that trap because I was trained as a general ed teacher. That's what I feel most comfortable with. So the interactive lesson did show up as one of the top 1 or 2 on both of the shared problem solving protocols. So as a teacher, that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to give an interactive lesson to all students in the classroom, not just Candace. And so I've streamlined not only individualized tailored support for Candace, but that support also will help all students in the classroom. And as a teacher, that provides me sanity that I'm not having to do 10,000 different things in my classroom. I've streamlined the process that will help all students. And in particularly in this case, based on the evidence, Candace and what she needs to be successful.
Pardon me.
Yes.
Before you move to the next slide, will you go back to the other slide? That one. Yes, that one. I don't know that I'm sure where the numbers are coming from. So this is my first time joining you. So I was trying to fill in gaps. And so I see video instruction and I see a 1 under criteria 1. What is that?
Okay. So video instructions, criteria 1 says it will help Candace stay motivated.
Okay.
So here we're saying in this particular case, because we're trying to get her to, we're focused only on the content in this one. Okay. The first one was social emotional. This one's only on the content.
Mm-hmm.
If Candace is already struggling with the tables and equations after weeks, do we think that giving her just some videos is going to help her?
No.
No. So I rated that low. I said if she's already struggling, I gave it a 1 because it's probably not going to help Candace.
Okay. A scale of what? 1 to what?
1 to 3. So 3 would be the highest.
Oh, okay. 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 All right. So 1 low. Okay. I'm with you now.
Okay. And you will get a copy of this protocol that you can adapt and use at the end of the session, adapt and use in your school or district in your area. So you will get this. And then that protocol, just to reiterate, comes from this book, Including Students with Special Needs, a practical guide. Like as a general ed teacher, this is gold to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I was the general ed teacher that had kids come to the classroom 2, 3, 4, sometimes below grade level. So it's like, how do you do this? And this book saved me as a teacher.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome. And I'm sure other people needed that explanation too. So we've ranked them. And when we rank them in the social emotional protocol as well as the content protocol, the interactive lesson pops up on both. And so that's what I'm going to choose to do. And I can do that interactive lesson with every kid in the classroom, but no, it's definitely going to be targeted support based on evidence and data, that protocol we just showed you, to push her learning forward as well as everybody else in the classroom. So Desmos as an interactive tool is a potential solution for both the content and the social emotional. So I wanted to show you what I meant by interactive lesson. So let me change my screen share. And then let me move y'all over. Sorry. Can you see Desmos?
I can see it.
Perfect. All right. Remember, the content we're focused on for Candace is from tables to an equation. So this is what I mean by interactive, and it will work for every student, not just Candace. So if you notice, we have a table, and then as I input the table, you notice it inputs the points on the graph for me. But Candace doesn't struggle with graphing. She struggles with the table to the equation. So she doesn't struggle with graphing to the equation. So it makes sense that I would use something of this to help her make connections among all of them. So this tool provides Candace an opportunity to explore. Remember, she's impulsive. She wants to try out things. So let's let her try out things in a safe environment. So what if Candace just impulsivity? Oh, I know that right over here, I'm going to look at all these X, this first column. I see they're going up by 1. So let me just try. Let's try an equation. I see they're all going up by 1. Ooh, so she tries it out, and what do we notice? Does it match up with the points? Nope. So that gives Candace immediate feedback without me as the teacher being there. So this is a great tool. It builds her, she can try it. She gets immediate feedback. She doesn't need that peer support. She's already getting it here. I can see it clearly doesn't go through the points. So, all right. So then maybe she wants to try out something else. It's not working. Okay. So she just wants to try out, and she can keep trying and seeing that feedback until she can try out something to create an equation that does match the graph, the table, and now the equation matches it. But all kids could benefit. But Candace specifically will benefit from this because this is her struggle. And then just a side note, creating equations is most students' struggle. Let's just be honest. If you're in the middle school or high school, that is the struggle for most students in mathematics. So it's not just Candace in this case. But this is a prime example of using that shared problem solving protocol, using those proficiency skills of where do we get the resources to help for the individualized, levelized learning goals, and then what protocol can we use to measure the effectiveness of what we're doing and the effectiveness of what we want to do moving forward to align to our goals. And I cannot emphasize enough that it streamlines the whole entire process. Problem-solving protocol, shared problem-solving protocol with the proficiency skills, that's your documentation right there. It's Kim and I's job to keep coming back and forth together and saying, how's Candace doing? Oh, she's doing really good today. Oh, Candace didn't do so hot today. It's our responsibility to have those conversations. But if we have those tools to drive it, our conversations are really quick and brief and are based on data and evidence. Kim, do you want to add on to anything as I switch screens?
I agree with you. And I think too, just like you're saying, it's based on data, and it seems as you first look at it, and even when we were first starting working on proficiency scales together, in the beginning it seems overwhelming, but once you know how to use the tool, it just makes things so much easier. And I'm not having to go to 3 or 4 or 5 different places to try to find this data or try to find what I need to talk to this teacher about with the student. It's all there. Everybody's on the same page. And if I, as that teacher, have to sit down in a meeting with the parents and talk about goals for their child, I have all of these things I can point to say this is where she is. These are the specific things that she can and cannot do. And the proficiency skills that are available, we're talking about math, but there are skills out there for other subjects as well. So yeah. And then in our next step, we'll talk about, just kind of going into that, what I would do as the special education teacher with Candace on these same topics. So I would want to help Candace to learn more features with her calculator. So she may be doing something a little different in the general ed classroom, but if I pull her, we may pull out that graphing calculator and learn how to put in the table, get an equation, and all those different features to kind of help her with seeing that and seeing those relationships. And then I would work with her with that interactive tool too, with Desmos, helping her to make the generalizations like you just saw. She could do some of that on her own in the classroom, but then I would want to see, I would want to do that with her and kind of have discussions with her about, why did you try that number? What made you think about that? And that would also help me to relay to Elizabeth, okay, this seems to be where we're getting confused, because I could have that one-on-one discussion with her about it. And then also I would want to work with her in a paper pencil format too. You really have to prepare the students for any kind of assessment and to be able to do things in different ways. So I don't want her to get so comfortable doing something on Desmos or on the computer that we then can't work on paper. We don't know what to do when we're given this on paper. So I would want to work with her on that as well.
But the tool provides her a safe place, even if she's impulsive, to try out something and see if it works or not, and then keep coming back to like, why did it work? Why didn't it work? Can I come up with generalizations so that when she does get the paper and pencil form, she has that understanding, those skills and that concepts to be successful on it?
So this is another quote. We like quotes around here about going back to the drawing board. We've been talking about how it's our responsibility to collaborate and to get together. And one of the things that we really want to touch on today is that first conversation that we would have had about Candace, or that we did in our last session for any who might have been there, that was just the starting point. So that was just our first conversation about where we wanted to start with her and what supports we thought would work for her. But for every standard or every situation, we may not need those same types of supports. So we have to continue to come back to the table and talk about how she's doing. And even if she's doing well, then we need to talk about, okay, she's doing really well. Do we need to pull back some of that support so that we can push more independence? So there's always a discussion that's going on back and forth. So this quote, "Isn't the drawing board the place where all the best work happens?" I really like this quote. Elizabeth found it. And I think it's perfect for working with our students. And it says it's not a bad thing to go back there. It's the entire point. And I think that's the entire point of what we're talking about with collaboration. Even if these aren't the tools that you use to collaborate, we hope you do, because we think they're really good. But but even if you're doing something else, the point is having real discussions about the students and making decisions based on data and on what the child really needs, and not just on what we're used to doing for a certain type of kid. Did you want to add anything to that, Elizabeth?
No, I just think, and I said this in the first meeting, but asking Kim and I to collaborate for 5 minutes for a child, someone's kid, is not too much to ask. And so we're saying that if we use these protocols and tools, that this is doable, that this is not, and I know that teachers are faced, most people are faced in circumstances they never thought they'd be in light of COVID. And we're saying these tools help streamline the process. Let's work smarter, not harder. We're all working towards the same goal. and having a 5-minute conversation on behalf of Candace with Kim, the special ed teacher, is not too much to ask of me as a general ed teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, one of the suggestions that I just noticed in the chat, Elizabeth, I don't know if you saw this, but talking about the Desmos tool was that she could start another equation below each time so she could track the trials, and I think that was a good idea.
Absolutely. I saw that too, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so to wrap it up, we'll talk about kind of what we've talked about, sum it all up. So we started off reviewing those proficiency scales and the benefits of those. And like we were saying, as we get to the end of this, we're going to show you where you can get those to use them. We also looked at ongoing collaboration, and I think we probably talked you to death over that, understanding the benefit of that collaboration being ongoing. And specifically here, we're talking about with the proficiency scales, but in general. And then we learned about the shared problem solving and problem solving protocols as well. So as we move on, we had talked about this, you would get resources. You can scan this code, and if you have an iPhone and you open up your camera, I'm gonna do it right now just so I can make sure I'm telling you, and you scan it, you should get a little link up top that says open in Drive, and it will take you to a Google Drive that should have the materials that we talked about today. You will have to you'll probably have to request access to that, but don't be put off by that. You can do that, and that will give you the problem solving protocols that we used, and then you could download and adapt them, or to your needs, and also the proficiency scales.
Yeah, so we did an electronic proficiency scales, how we would communicate electronically with the proficiency scales back and forth. Although in the presentation, we also showed you how paper and pencil, we would check off, scratch out, all of that kind of stuff, as well as Candace specific. So I gave y'all the social emotional one on Candace, and I gave you the content one. But if at any point outside of this, you have questions about those protocols or the proficiency scales, or collaborating, or want to bounce ideas off of Kim and I, do not hesitate to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. And so we will give you our contact information at the end. That's the last thing we'll give you. So in the participant resource folder, you'll have a proficiency scale based on Candace and where she's at, as well as the social emotional shared problem solving protocol and the content shared problem solving protocol.
All right, and I've put a link in the chat as well. So if you didn't scan a QR code, you could still get to that drive. Excuse me. This is a QR code that links you to AMSTI's website. And then do you want to talk about what all you can find there?
Yes. So, proficiency scales for math and science can be found on AMSTI's website. So if you're looking for the math or science proficiency scales, they're housed there, because we found out some teachers had issues in Schoology. And so they are housed there for math and science only. But on AMSTI's website, there's tons of resources. There's tons of vetted resources that teachers can use for different content. It's actually broken down in the content areas. So there's stuff that you can use to send to parents, like there's a parent resource guide. There's all kinds of resources for teachers. There's student mathematical practice posters, anything that, so I would check out AMSTI because there is a lot of information there. I might want to star it so it's saved, because we're constantly updating the AMSTI website to provide more resources for teachers, especially in light of the craziness we have going on because of COVID.
And then this last QR code takes you to our live binder, the ALSDE Digital Learning Repository. And I'm going to send you a link to that as well. Let's see. There are a lot of resources here. You will see a lot of things that deal with Schoology, but not everything on there is Schoology related. There is a little, you can kind of see it in the picture. There's a yellow tab that says Special Ed Teachers Digital Learning Resources Just for You. That is where we in Special Ed Services have a lot of resources. I will tell you as well, when you go here, at least for me, a lot of times if I try to click the table of contents, like the print part that you're seeing where it says it has the heading table of contents, I can't make those links work. I don't know why, but if you go up to the little colored tabs, those will work. So don't be, thrown off if that doesn't work for you. And a lot of things, you click that colored tab and it opens other colored tabs, or there might be a different link to click. So just be aware of that. But there's a lot there. There's a lot of resources also for self-contained classrooms, accommodations, resources, things like that.
And Keisha, I think you asked about if you would get the PowerPoint. You won't get the PowerPoint, but the video, this session is recorded and you can access it through the live binder as well. So whenever it gets uploaded, you can share this video from the live binder with your teachers or rewatch it yourself. But that's where the recordings are housed. You can get to them through the live binder.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And probably our last one is there. I'm not sure the time frame of when they upload the monthly ones, but you should be able to find the recording of our last session.
And go back and look. We started this in August. We're now in November. A lot of these have occurred, and you might find a couple that you're like, wow, this is totally beneficial to my situation right now. So I would go and peruse what is there.
This, there's a link to this resource on the live binder as well, but I just wanted to show it to you. This is a collaborative library for the Alabama alternate standards, the Alabama alternate achievement standards. I'm saying them all right. But you click on it, and I think it takes you to a drive where you request access. So just so you know, that doesn't mean you can't get in. They just want it to be somewhat locked down. And I don't know how much is in there right now, but I wanted to share this with you all because it's a place where we're trying to collect materials and where teachers can share materials. So feel free to go in there and add things if you've got them, or try to see what somebody else may have for alternate standards. And unless you have anything else, Elizabeth, that is pretty much it for today. We're so thankful to have all of you here. I hope it's been helpful for you. Feel free to ask us questions that you may have, or email us with questions.
And I would love if y'all would reach out to me about the shared problem solving protocol and you will have questions about it. I would love that, because as a general ed teacher, it really helps streamline the process, especially when used with proficiency skills. I just cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we thank you. As long as you are registered in Power Schools and we can see your name, you will get credit for being here. If for some reason you were not registered in Power School and you want to be, you should still be able to do that. Let me tell you before you go, I'm going to put in the chat the section number, because we did have a few people, of course it's logged me out now, we did have a few people that emailed me saying they had a hard time finding it in Power School. So I'm going to put the section number in the chat just in case anybody still needs to find it. But other than that, we are done. You're welcome to hop off, and we'll hang here for a while in case anybody does have any additional questions.
Yeah, and if you don't want to unmute yourself, and might be a little shy, you can email us too. But unmute yourself, either pop in the chat, email us. When will the 2019 proficiency scales arrive? Probably right after Christmas, around maybe February, beginning of February. They're already made, we just have to vet them.
Well, and I'll point out too, what you saw today, the scale that went down to level 1, that is something that special ed services and AMSTI work together to make. So the new proficiency scales, unless I'm wrong, Elizabeth, won't have information down as far as level 1.
Correct. We'll have to do a revamp, and maybe special ed services can push that out with the essentials on y'all's end, and AMSTI can push out the traditional ones.
Right.
Good afternoon. I just want to say thank you so much for these resources. The proficiency scales will definitely come in handy. And the case studies, I was going to say, but the examples were really useful. We are starting to roll out the A+ curriculum. Mm-hmm. And so the thing with that is that we don't see how the extended standards are, because we're required to implement those resources in the curriculum in the way, the scope and sequence, everything that's included in there, but it's not on the level of AAS. It's not particularly accommodated work. So I think between these two resources that would be helpful. But since I did hear you say that you were looking at continuing to revamp those things, is it possible that you kind of get with that that area of the curriculum and learning and kind of get those resources to where we won't have that much trouble with the inclusion, because this is like learning a whole new, an entirely new body of work in just such a short amount of time?
Yes, and A+ is really geared towards those pre-AP track students. So if you're using that with an inclusion class, I can see where you might be struggling. So A+ is a separate entity. Their curriculum is their curriculum. However, I want to offer y'all some exciting news. Coming out in start of the 21-22 school year, so the full implementation of the 2019 course of study, we anticipate to have a curriculum from the State Department or AMSTI that's available for free, because like A+ you have to pay, for free for all districts and teachers. And so, be looking for that. That is coming, but that would only include for this first year, the start of this new coming school year, would only be for grade 6, 7, 8, 7 accelerated, 8th accelerated, and geometry with data analysis. So you would have curriculum accessible for all middle school, and then for geometry with data analysis for high school. So that is coming down the pipe and should be out by August, free to everybody in the state of Alabama through Schoology. And that curriculum is created by Alabama teachers for Alabama students based on Alabama standards.
Thank you. That was the thing, right? But there's definitely good news. So I'll be looking for some PDs to go along with that. I cannot wait to take that back to my district and share that with everyone. That y'all are on top of things. Thank you so much for this training. I definitely benefited from that. Y'all have a great day, okay?
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you so much. You just made my day. All right, so if there are no more questions, feel free to end the meeting for yourself and enjoy the rest of your day and a great Friday tomorrow. So we're nearing the end of the week, but feel free to end the meeting for yourself, or you can unmute and ask any questions or pop in any questions in the chat or email us.